London is one of the greatest cities in the world. And it's not because of its cosmopolitan nightlife or great financial districts or even its red phone booths. No, London is just an amazing city with a lot of diversity. And we want to talk about diversity, let's focus in on what we would consider the black part of London, affectionately known to many of us as Black London. Most people don't know that London has a lot of black people, and that has a lot to do with the British Crown having a lot of its territory in Anglophone Africa. Countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, and Gambia, and many other parts had its own people living and moving to London for a better life. Let's not forget Trinidad and Jamaica in the Caribbean. So these blacks who came from these places as citizens already and moving over to the UK for a new life established themselves there in this city as first and second generational black people. We know them now as Black British, and we understand the things they went through, racism and being discriminated against. But now the question is, how are black men experiencing dating in the city of London? And not a lot is known about the subject, because most of us as African American men focus on our own big cities: Atlanta, New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and other major cities such as St. Louis and Detroit. But not much is known about London and its dating experience for black men. That is up until Falcon Schwarzenegger, also known as Falcon Black, made this brilliant video called Tinder is Not for Black British Men. Now, this is very interesting because one of the things we want to do as African American men is to compare notes to the brothers over on the other side of the ocean, because they are in many ways very similar to us, although not equal. And the question is, are black British men experiencing the same problems on Tinder as a lot of men in the African American community in the United States? There's only one way to find out. Let's check out what his first clip is about, and then we'll come back.
Fun fact, in the UK, 85% of Tinder's user base is male. Therefore, we can say that Tinder is just not for men, simply put. First of all, I think it's important that everyone knows how Tinder makes its money, okay? I'm gonna explain in a second why I'm just walking in this video, okay? But let's understand how Tinder makes its money. Tinder makes its money from 3 revenue streams. That is subscriptions, the super likes, and boosts. Okay, and while it offers what it calls a freemium business model, that service has been designed to offer very limited features, right? So users will feel compelled to upgrade for more and better matches, okay? So this is important because it already shows us that these dating apps run a scheme on algorithm where off rip, in their free service, they are not giving you the best ideal matches. They obviously want you to remain on the app for a long duration. Right?
So as you can tell, and I want to talk about this, like I said, London is a very diverse city. So it's not just black people, it's everybody. But he starts off talking about Tinder as an app doesn't give you a whole lot of quality searches for free. So that means that you need to pay. And you need to pay, and because you're in a big city like London, and there are a lot of rich men in London, and there are a lot of people who are successful coming from many different parts of the world. And remember, in London, it's home to the most billionaires on planet Earth. So competition is stiff, and so women have a lot of opportunities. It seems to me that these guys who are in London are having the same problem as guys in the United States. They're paying for the service, but many men are still getting rejected on the app. And that's very interesting because in the second clip, Falcon Black talks about the fact that many guys who possibly would have a chance with a woman in person find themselves getting rejected on the app, possibly because they didn't take the right photo, or possibly because they don't have the right lighting, or whatever it is. These things play into not matching on the app, leading to what he would consider low self-esteem. Let's play that clip.
And I don't like using these silly rating systems, but, most people understand it. But, you can see in the mirror, and many other people in the real world can see that you are a relatively attractive man. You are relatively handsome. Okay, we can always say looks are subjective, but relatively speaking, you are aesthetically pleasing. But when you take it to the virtual world, again, you have to account for things like picture quality. What type of camera are you using to take these pictures? Are they professional or are they just selfies? Is the ISO correct, right? Is it too dark? Is it too light? Is it bringing out your best features? So needless to say, when you're getting passed by women who you would, in probably the real world, you would easily or normally attract, that is affecting your self-esteem. That is affecting your healthy ego. That is making you feel less attractive. And that is damaging. Okay? Because in my communications with single men that really want relationships, they are now basing their attractiveness on the reception they get from these dating apps. So it presents a dilemma, almost a bipolar one.
Now, it's interesting, on a video that I did last year entitled "The Number of Sexless Men Has Tripled Due to Tinder," that video was very successful. I mentioned this particular person by the name of Chris Williamson, okay? And I took an excerpt of his original video called "The Number of Sexless Men Has Tripled in 10 Years," and it is due to Tinder. Now, I want you to listen very closely how much advantage good-looking men on Tinder, and I'm talking about the men that women find very attractive, how much of an advantage that they have over average guys who are struggling on the app. This information is shocking. Let's play that clip.
Thread by Rob Henderson earlier on, which is really interesting. Could the matching imbalance on Tinder and other dating apps be a factor in the rise of the incel movement and young men reporting low sexual activity? So there's a graph here that says the young men, share of men and women between the ages of 18 and 30 reporting no sex in the past year. And that has gone up from 10% to 30% for men since around about 2010 to 2020 to now, right? So over the last decade, the number of men reporting no sex in the last year has tripled. And the line on the graph has got where Tinder's introduced, and it is exactly when men, where that inflection for men beginning to go from the 10% to the 20 to 28%. Women also actually stay flat for a little while, but have increased, which is also very interesting. Wealth in Tinder is not distributed equally. Attractive guys have more wealth in the Tinder economy. They get more likes than unattractive guys. That's the bottom 80% of men, bottom 20% of women, top 80% of women, top 20% of men thing, which a lot of people are familiar with. There's a thing called a Gini coefficient or a Gini coefficient, which works out how much inefficiency there is within a system. So it's used to look at economies within countries, and the lower that the number is, the more equality there is within wealth distribution.
Now, if you can remember, he mentioned something like a Gini coefficient. And that Gini coefficient is something that measures wealth inequality inside of a country that you can use, like he talked about, as a disparity. And if you look at a country like South Africa, in comparisons to a country like Canada or United States, there is more equality when you talk about who controls wealth. It's more equally distributed in places like Canada or the United States. However, in South Africa, it is very clear, if you know anything about South Africa, that there's a big difference between the haves and the have-nots. That's the wealth disparity, or the Gini coefficient. And the Gini coefficient is in between Venezuela, which we know is dirt poor, right? And the people who are rich are really rich and the poor are poor, and it's very many in South Africa. That is the advantage that good-looking men have on Tinder in comparisons to normal guys. So if we go back to what Falcon Schwarzenegger was saying about guys who have this low self-esteem, it also feels that these guys on Tinder in the UK are facing the same, if not exact, issue that men in America are having. And because they have issues, let's say matching online, it could also hurt one's self-esteem. Now, imagine if you're a guy growing up in this time where you don't feel comfortable approaching women, you don't feel comfortable talking to women in person because you even feel fearful of rejection. What happens? A lot of guys are going sexless. And so because a lot of men and a lot of black men in London would probably not be preferred, and I would say one of the reasons why that is because of a lot of the women there could possibly be liking white men or Asian men or with the black stereotypes if you're not conventionally handsome. It must mean that the rates of sexless men are rising in the UK, despite the fact that they are spending a lot of money to participate on this dating app with possibly no real chance of matching. And even if you do match, there's no proof that you're going to get the phone number, right? It just means that you can talk to them. And then also, there's no guarantee you're going to get a date. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get a relationship or a sexual partner. So what will my advice be to the brothers in London? Well, I will say you're going to have to go and do it the old school way. Old school way is always this: improve yourself, speak to ladies all the time, and do it the old fashioned way. A lot of guys, as Falcon said, would have a better chance in person because let's say if you're tall, let's say if you don't take the best pictures, but you smell good, you're a good dresser, obviously somebody like yourself would have a better chance in person. But when you're online and you have so many guys trying to date these women online all the time, it really goes against your situation. Now, let's say, for example, you're a funny guy, you're a hardworking guy, you're an ambitious guy. You can't see that on Tinder, right? There's no way to really gauge that on Tinder with an app like that. But of course, in person, somebody could know if you're a good person. You know, like there's these things called like Rotary clubs, you know, that people go to all the time. You know, there's communities people do all the time. And then it gives people the chance to see what kind of person you are. And that's how it is typically here in Africa. It's still very much an in-your-face type of game. So I would just give that small advice to guys, and it really pains me to know that our brothers from the UK are still experiencing that. But I do want to give a shout out to Falcon Schwarzenegger and check his video out at the first comment at the top. And guys, it's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again. I'm out.